This episode of Grilled is sponsored by Rationale, your leading provider in multifunctional hot food preparation equipment. Register now for a free Rationale live demo at www.rationale-online.com. Thanks for downloading Grilled by the Staff Canteen. In this episode, we look at the effect Covid-19 has had on the hospitality industry around the world. We spoke with chefs Kirk Westaway, executive chef at Jaan in Singapore, chef and co-founder of Masque Restaurant in Mumbai, Prateek Sadhu, Nelly Robinson from Nelly Restaurant in Sydney, and Michelin-starred Niklas Ekstedt, Swedish chef and restaurateur, about the different ways in which the sector in their countries has had to adapt in the face of the pandemic.
Okay, thank you for joining us for our live discussion today. I'm Cara Houchin, I'm the editor of the Staff Canteen, and I have got some great guests which you can see from around the world with me to talk about the effect of coronavirus on hospitality in different countries. But most importantly, we want to talk about how they are or have managed post-lockdown and or when that is going to happen. I'll let them introduce themselves, the restaurant and where they are based. So give us a quick overview of the kind of the initial impact of the virus and what that has had on your businesses and obviously hospitality in your country as well. So Niklas, let's start with you. Tell us who you are, the restaurant and where you are, and give us a little bit of an insight into what's been going on.
Well, I'm Niklas Ekstedt. I'm a chef and restaurateur in Stockholm. I run 3 restaurants in the very heart of Stockholm, the middle of the city, so Sweden's capital, Stockholm. And I have my main restaurant is same name as my surname, Ekstedt, and I have 1 Michelin star. And Sweden has not gone through a lockdown. The Swedish government has chosen to do a very soft version or a soft handling of the coronavirus crisis here in Sweden. It's been very controversial, and I think there is not one major news network in the world that has not reported about Stockholm and what's happening in this country, because we have had a very unique approach to this. And so we've had restrictions. I mean, all kind of like nightclubs, theaters, big venues are closed, but restaurants are allowed to be open if we have less than 50 people in the premises at once, including staff, and that we keep a social distance of 1.5 meters. So we spread it out the tables a little bit, and but business has been almost as usual, even if it's been strange times, and we've had no foreigners, of course, because the airport has been closed. But apart from that, you know, it's been pretty much life as usual.
Okay, obviously we'll talk more about that, but I'll let everyone introduce themselves first. So Nelly, introduce yourself to everyone, and again, just give us a little overview of what what's been going on with you.
Hey guys, Nelly Robinson from Nelly Restaurant here in Sydney. A little oversight was that hit quite hard here, but the government saw it quite early, so they shut the airports very, very quickly, and anybody that came into the country self-quarantined for 14 days from March onwards. So between the Australian governments and the New Zealand governments, they've really cracked down very quickly, and New Zealand yesterday went to 0 people in the whole country, and I think we're down to, it's been about 6-7 days since we've had any in New South Wales. So we're back open now from last week, from Tuesday, so we've been really busy, and what we've seen from that is people are itching to get out. You know, people are out spending money online, and last week for a business, you know, we did probably 60% less people in the restaurant, but we've made probably about the same amount of money. So yeah, we're chuffed to bits that we're starting to get back to a bit of normality. But during the actual pandemic here was quite scary. Being an independent business and everything, it was scary at one point because we had to let go of all 17 staff at the start of it, and then after that we've managed to now recoup some amazing staff. So positives and negatives have come out of this for us, but yeah, you know, we're cracking on now, and we're really excited for the future now.
Good to hear this consumer confidence is there, and they're still coming back. Be a relief to a lot of people.
There's a part of me that thought, oh my God, when you open that booking system, are they actually going to come in? But yeah, they did, thank God.
Good. And Prateek, can you tell us a bit about yourself, about the restaurant and what has been happening in Mumbai?
My name is Prateek Sadhu, and I run a restaurant called Masque in Mumbai, in India. We've been in lockdown since mid-March. That's when the government announced the entire lockdown. And we're still under lockdown right now in India, especially in the state that I'm. We have a lot of COVID cases, and it's on the increase. So in our state, we're kind of in a strict lockdown where restaurants are not allowed. There are no bars, no pubs, no shopping malls, everything's shut. Since April, that's when we started delivery model. We changed the model and we started doing takeaways, we started doing deliveries. It was totally different for me. It was as if I was opening a new restaurant because we had to choose the delivery boxes, we had to change the menu, we had to change everything. And that's when we really thought to ourselves, what do I really want to eat? So we're doing tacos, we're doing some burgers, and I'm doing some couple of traditional dishes. So I think, it's really difficult for all of us here because at the end of the day, it's a business that you have to run. And we're really concentrating on delivery model because we really want to save the restaurant. If we don't do that, then there's a problem. Then we might have to take some crazy decisions. And because it's a labor of love, and it's been 3.5 years that we have run Masque. For us, it's everything. For me, it's everything. So right now we're hanging in there. We're running a super tight ship, but I don't know when we'll be out of the lockdown and when we'll be able to run the restaurant. But so far, we're really depending on delivery model, and that's where we're really being creative. That's what we can do right now.
Yeah. Okay. And you said you mentioned July that you're hoping to be able to. You're looking at July to reopen, or? I'm
hoping, but if the cases start increasing again, then I think government will put us under lockdown again, maybe till August. So let's hope for the best.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Kirk, what about you?
Yeah, hi, my name is Kirk Westaway. I'm the executive chef of Jaan in Singapore. I've been here for almost 8 years now, quite a while in Singapore. And we've been in lockdown since kind of early March, early April, so just on 2 months now. We're trying to come out as soon as possible. We've done well with holding on to all of our staff. As the restaurants closed, the government have encouraged a scheme to put the staff into fishmongers and butchers in local supermarkets, so they've all been maintained, and we don't have to lose anyone inside. So it's pretty beneficial right now. We're looking to come out as soon as possible, but at the moment, the dates are still not released as to when we could possibly fully reopen.
Okay. And you mentioned that you have to wear a face mask to go anywhere.
The rules and the laws in Singapore, the second you leave your house, you have to wear a mask, whether you go on the public transport, out on the streets, in the shops, even the people still working in businesses or restaurants must wear a mask. Everybody is involved, and it's for your own security and everybody around you. So it's really the entire country is compiling with the rules and regulations.
Okay. And let's just stick with staff, as you all kind of mentioned them. Niklas, has it had an effect on you? Because obviously you've had to cut down how many people you can have in the restaurant, and has that affected how many staff you can therefore have? I know yours is slightly different to everyone else's reasoning behind maybe possibly losing staff. So.
Yes, we've cut down on staff quite a lot, actually. One of the reasons is that usually I have quite a lot of staff because I run a fine dining restaurant, so we need a lot of hands. But because of the regulations that we can only have 50 people in the premises, the more I limit the staff, the more guests I can have. So actually one staff is one more guest. So it's been like maths, so we've cut down on the menu a little bit, done the tasting menu smaller, taken away the amuse-bouche, taken away the petit fours, and making sure that we can do a short, fast menu on as little people as possible. And so we've laid off maybe 30% of our total staff, but we've managed to keep the core and the most important people that I used to have before the crisis. We still have employed, so we've been very very lucky in many ways.
And obviously, with you having to lose staff, I'm assuming that's like across the country that has happened in all different industries where you've had to change for certain, obviously, social distancing. Has the government put anything in place to help people with this, or not?
Yeah. Everyone. We don't have to lay off anyone. If you've been employed for more than 6 months, the government takes 80% of the wages.
Okay, similar to us then. Okay, and Nelly, you mentioned that you had to let everyone go. What has it been in Australia in terms of support from the government and that side of things?
Yeah, it was heartbreaking, to be honest with you, to sit down these guys and tell them. But we've got sponsorships over here, so people are sponsorship through the business. So we've got 3 guys that are through the business that I had to keep hold of, because if not, they would have had to go home. So that's my head chef, my sous chef, and my chef de partie. So they were the core team. But the government here put in a JobKeeper thing where they were giving the same as what Niklas was saying about their 80%. But if you're foreign, you don't get it. So it was a bit tough, because out of the 19 staff I employed before this, only one of them could get the JobKeeper. So as a business, it hit me quite hard, because to keep these 3 on, we've lost money, but I'm quite confident that we can regain that money if we push ourselves in the next 3 to 6 months. Again, we've shortened the menu a little bit so we can turn the tables and try and get some extra revenue in to try and recoup that money. But letting go of some staff was hard. But the positive out of this is that I've actually had time to hire better staff in certain areas. So I've now managed to get a new general manager and new assistant manager that I would have probably not got if I was open before, because they were in jobs before. So for me, I'm actually quite happy with the staff side of things, because I've got better staff now for us to push forward. So now there's a positive to a negative in this.
Yeah. And Prateek, what about you? I know you said that obviously you're doing like your delivery side of it, so I'm assuming you've managed to keep some of your team, but have you had to let go of some as well?
No, we didn't fire anyone. We didn't let go of anyone. We still have the entire team intact with us. Of course, we had to do some kind of salary cuts, which was we had to do it because there was zero income for at least a couple of months. But we it's a different situation in India, because there's a lot of people who are dependent on just the staff salaries, because there've been no relaxation from the government as far as hotel and restaurant industry is concerned. So there was no other source of income, and so we managed to keep everything intact. We managed to pay them at least some of the salaries where they can at least have their livelihood going on. So as far as whatever money that we are generating from delivery and takeaway menus is going to pay our rent and some staff to the salary. There's nothing that we are keeping in banks, because we are running, whatever we are earning, we're just distributing the entire money. It's everywhere I see, be it UK, US, Australia, the government has really, stepped out and helped the restaurant industry. But in India, it's a very different case. Unfortunately, there have been no relaxation for us at all. So we're just trying to do as much as we can so that our staff is retained. They have some kind of income going like in their banks, so that they can survive, because it can be difficult. It's a really difficult time. So as a restaurant and as an individual, we're trying to do as best as we can so that our employees can be supported in any way.
Because the furlough scheme we have in the UK, where obviously people are being paid 80% of their wages, was like a huge relief. So it's quite frightening to think that you have none of that available to you.
Honestly, that was the driving factor that we had to do delivery and takeaway model, because we wanted them to support. So otherwise, with zero income, it would have been difficult for us to support them. So in April, we had to take the decision of starting this delivery model, and we're doing different things in delivery models where we can really generate some kind of income, so that at least we can support them right now.
Yeah. Okay. And Kirk, you mentioned that the government was encouraging you to put people into different jobs. Are they supporting you in any other way?
We're quite fortunate. Obviously, I'm in a large hotel with 1,500 staff, so it's been looked at in a different direction. All of my staff from the kitchen, Singaporeans, have managed to find placements within the big organization NTUC, which holds, work in supermarkets, or some are butchers preparing meat for wholesale, and also fishmongers, the ones that are unable to get placed. There's a couple of outlets still open within the hotel, such as an Italian takeaway, where we can place them for a couple of months just to continue maintaining their full salary, maintain their job and position, so that when we reopen fully, they can come back and rejoin us once again. So luckily, we haven't laid any staff off. The cuts have been very minimal on salary, and generally it's been taken care of very well. The only problem is we're unable to organise a takeaway service because all of my staff have been spread out to the supermarkets and the butchers. So whereas many restaurants in the country and around the world have found an option of creating a takeaway service, so now we're currently unable to do it because the staff are not there. So we're looking forward to lifting the lockdown so we can all return and regain to a regular service that we're all used to.
Yeah, I mean, all of us in lockdown cannot wait for it to be lifted. I think it's definitely a general consensus there. And I think it's really interesting that I've got, obviously, Niklas has not had lockdown, and then Nelly, you're obviously a first week or two coming out of lockdown. Niklas, what would you say about the kind of the restrictions that you have, and what maybe we can learn from that, people who are going to come out of lockdown? So, you've got the 1.5 meter rule, haven't you, for within the restaurants, and you even said that you have people who come around to the restaurant to check that you're complying to these measures as well. So maybe tell us a bit more about that and how that's affected you as a business.
Yeah, okay, so with the Swedish government, it's been very debated on Swedish news. I mean, it's almost talked about on a regular basis how the restaurants are following on the restriction rules. And especially when the warm weather came after a quite cold spring here in Sweden, a lot of people wanted to, sit outside. And actually, ironically enough, the debate was how close to sit outside, because, inside the restaurant it was really easy to get people to follow the restrictions. But when they were sitting out on terraces and cafes, people, tend to sit closer, and so there was a big debate about that, how to follow the social distancing on the outside the premises. And then what they did was that they started like a COVID police that goes around checking on all the cafes and restaurants, making sure that they follow the rules. And if you don't, they shut the restaurant down quite quickly. And so restaurateurs were terrified about that, and thought it was little like Stasi methods kind of. So it's been a very strange time in that sense, because usually you focus on trying to make the operation work as perfectly and as delicious as possible every day, and now you had a third thing to think of, was the social distance and making sure that guests were following them and the staff was following them. So but once it was quite interesting how quickly kind of just people just started to follow the rules and making sure that the restaurant was not over packed. And so it's been, now it's it's almost like it always been like this. It's strange how quickly it's just like people just get used to this strange time, and people are very happy that the restaurants are open and they can go out and eat. And one thing that maybe a recommendation, or something that I've learned through this time is like, don't change too much on your restaurant, because there was a reason why your restaurant was full and popular before the crisis, and that's the same reason why people are going to come back to the restaurant. So we haven't changed that much. We've taken away some of the dishes, making sure there's more room in the restaurant, but the main product is still there, and I think that's really important.
I'd also just like to ask, obviously you said that the Swedish method was quite controversial, and people weren't sure whether they agreed with it or not. So just tell us about what people in Sweden think about it, because your death rate, you said it is high. So even though, and explain a little bit about how the economy is better than others, but it's not as good as it has been. So
I think that when it comes to small businesses and restaurateurs and cafes and hairdressers, when we haven't seen the same impact as other countries have had, because we've been open. But of course, the economy as whole, as Sweden is a big industrial exporting country with Volvo and Saab, IKEA, Hennes and Mauritz and H&M and so on. There's of course a slowdown in the economy, and tourism is not here. But when it comes to small businesses, we've been very lucky, and most of them are still alive. But I think that but when it comes to the government way of handling the whole situation, in the beginning, when the other neighboring countries, Denmark, Norway, Finland, all locked down, while Sweden kept everything open, of course, all the neighboring countries were wondering, what the hell are you doing? You know, you're killing people. Why aren't you having a lockdown? And there was also a sense of, you know, a non-solidarity against the neighboring countries. So there have been a lot of tensions between Denmark, Sweden, and Norway and Finland, and especially the borders, because as Scandinavia is all, you know, it's like the UK, it's Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. I mean, you know, between Wales and England, you don't really think of a border. So between like Denmark and Sweden and Norway and Sweden, we didn't think of them as countries. You know, we were just one big place, and suddenly there were border controls. Norway's been really strict with not having Swedes coming into Norway, and of course all these things really gets tensions. So that's something that, you know, we haven't seen here in the Scandinavian countries. You know, in my generation, we've never seen tensions between the countries and the borders, but that's really something that's very controversial and debated. And you personally, are you happy with the decision, or would you have rather have had a lockdown? What's your thought? I mean, I'm the most blessed restaurateur in the world right now. I mean, I can't be more than happy, but of course, seeing the death rates and the numbers of people getting ill is not a great thing to look at. So yeah. I mean, of course, there's two worlds, but if I look at it out of a completely personal economy and as a restaurateur, I'm pleased. Yeah. Okay. Kirk, listening to Niklas and him talking about operating with restrictions, does that make you feel a bit more confident about opening and being able to maybe get back to some normality?
Well, it's very interesting. It's the absolute reverse to most of us in the world. So it's interesting to see the different direction from the governments. And you know, we're very confident. We're fortunate to have quite a low infection rate in Singapore, and once again, it's a country that they try to manage from the early stages, and we are quite confident. The problem for all of us is the borders are closed. Obviously, Singapore, as most of us, we rely heavily on tourism coming into the country for customers, and especially people staying in the hotel and dining guests. So until that reopens, it will be a struggle to really fill all the restaurants as it once were. Just the local crowds from Singapore is not really enough to generate the kind of full capacity of the restaurants in Singapore for a long amount of time. Hopefully, like Nelly said, people are really keen to come out and spend and have a lavish lifestyle when the doors are open, but that's what we're kind of relying on for now. But if and when we can open.
And Nelly, what about you? You're so early into coming out of lockdown, listening to like Niklas, and he's obviously been operating with these kind of restrictions for the whole time. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm just so glad we're open, and the relief that came through my body on Tuesday, seeing everybody in the restaurant and having a full restaurant, was the biggest relief I've had for years. So, look, we've had policing on Wednesday night. They did come down and check that we were 1.5 meters apart and that we were doing things properly. So, you know, my advice to people around the world when they do open, do take it seriously, because, you know, people's health is at risk, you know, and you have to, as a restaurateur, you're in charge of the people that are in your restaurant, so you've got to be really careful with it. So but I'm just so glad to be open. Like, we've done 55 again tonight on a Tuesday night, so people are wanting to get out and eat, but I know that some restaurants are struggling, and what Niklas said as well about changing your model. We never changed the model during the course of this. We did some delivery boxes to people's houses, but it was fresh food. It wasn't anything that we could take from the restaurant because we didn't want to ruin the brand. So When people now are coming back, nothing's changed. Just a couple of courses have changed just to help us get through it with a lower price. So I'm positive from this side, and the bookings look good until all the way through to August. So we're positive that people do want to get out, and it looks like there's going to be a bubble of travel going to open between us, the Pacific Islands, and New Zealand, which is good as well. So tourism will start coming back in as well. So from my side, I can't be happier to be open. And I just got married in March, so to spend 7 days with the missus every day was a bit testing for the first 2 weeks. But after that, she got used to me again, so it was all good. And I think coming back to work is good because, you know, it's what we do and what we love. And for 20 years, that's all I've known.
Yeah. And Prateek, listening to everybody else and what they've been going through, how are you feeling about reopening and opening with those restrictions? I know someone's asked on Facebook if you think that you will be able to do tasting menus again once you're open, and so what are your thoughts on operating in that way?
I wish, you know, I mean, listening to Niklas and Nelly, you know, it's so great, you know, that their country will open up and the restaurants are open. I don't see, especially in Mumbai, that will be open anytime before August or September. So that's going to be a while. When we open, which I'm really hoping for, that'll be soon. I think we might have to change a few things in the restaurant in terms of when I say how we operate the menu sizes. Earlier, we had one menu, it had 12 courses. I think now we are thinking of reducing it to maybe 5 to 6 courses and turning the tables around quickly, because I think that's the need of the hour. And in Mumbai is the financial hub for all of the country. So we used to get so many people from all over the world. And I think since the borders are closed in India, we'll be heavily relying on our local clientele. And honestly, I'm being very optimistic and very positive that, you know, as soon as the lockdown ends, we call it an Indian way, that everybody's going to be out, you know, supporting local businesses, and that's what I'm hoping for. There'll be changes. I mean, I'll still I think I'll still keep the delivery menu on so that we can still get some money in. And shorten the menu. But yes, the tasting menu will be on. We don't want to change anything what we did before. Just the menu size will be short, and we'll be running full power. And
in the UK, we're a 2 meter restriction for our social distancing. What do you all think about that? Because I think all of you are 1.5, right, or less. So what do you think about the fact that our government's saying we have to be 2 meters? I don't know who wants to go first.
It's difficult. Table space must be, you're definitely restricted the amount of customers you can have in a restaurant, because we've asked to reduce the license by 50%. To have the space in between the restaurants 2 meters is quite a amount of space. If you've got a small dining restaurant, like mine is only kind of 30 covers. If you were to reduce that by 50% with a 2 meter distance in between, you lose many of your covers. And like you were saying, you will need to reduce the menu size to try and incorporate a second seating, which, you know, if you're not prepared for that kind of operation, is a big shock to the system, from going from one seating and then to roll around and start a second seating in one service is a big adjustment.
Yeah. And
I think 2 meters is really difficult. I mean, it's just such a big distance. You know, you need to have too much distance in the dining room, so it'll be difficult to get the amount of guests into the restaurant that you need to have a full business. I think if we would have had a 2 meters distance, I would probably not be open because it would be too hard, I think. So I think that to be able to operate, you need that 1.5 meters. That's it's still, you know, a lot of jobs work. So I think 2 meters would be difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I know the government's looking at it, but 2 meters.
They've been slow with everything though, Cara, haven't the British government? And I can say that being British, but to have people quarantined after 14 days traveling from into the country now is 2-3 months behind, you know. So they need to step it up, and really, because businesses are struggling, you know, and I've got a lot of friends in the industry, as you know, in England, and they're struggling, you know, and they need to move and move quickly.
Yeah. Another question just that's coming is that for those of you who are open, are people still happy to be in restaurants? Is there any sense of people staying away, or, you know, just explain that to people, because that's very alien to us who are not allowed out. So
I'll go first with this one, Niklas, if you don't mind. They are absolutely over the moon to be out. The cocktails were flowing all week, I'll tell you that for free. Like, it was, the Aussie public were drinking. It was a magical week last week. It really was, just to see people's faces. It was. We had a couple of people that were groaning and moaning, but you know, our reply to them was, if you're worried, don't go out still. But you know, it's so good to see people smiling. So from our side, there's no problems at all.
And Niklas, you said it almost feels like nothing's changed. You said the young people are not bothered at all. So
no, it's amazing to see Stockholm, how it rebounds so quickly, and especially now when the travel restrictions are lifted in the country. So we used to have a travel restriction, so you couldn't leave the city. You could leave the city, but maximum 1 hour outside the city. So, but now tourism in the country, it's coming back. So you can travel between Gothenburg and Stockholm and so on. And in Malmö, actually, they've started to take Danes. So if you can come from Denmark to Sweden, but not Swedes are not allowed into Denmark. And people are just over there. You can see them on social media. Everyone is so happy, you know, that they can start traveling and visiting friends and eating out. And we have a big, like, schools are closing this week, so there's a big kind of like a lot of people are taking their exams, so they're coming out to celebrate that. And so we feel like life is coming back slowly to normal. So it's been this week has been a great week in the restaurant, actually. And one thing that I'm really happy to see is that people still have money to spend. Because a lot of people have not been traveling. They have not, you know, there haven't been any parties or weddings to go to buy expensive presents, or they haven't been, you know, they've been maybe home decorating a little more than they used to. But apart from that, people haven't spent that much money. So we can really feel that people are, you know, willing to pay to go out and eat. So yeah, really pleased, actually. So I think that if the UK, if you just hold out, and hopefully the government will, you know, make sensible decisions, and maybe I think you're in for a treat. You're going to see how much people really enjoy the restaurants, and the restaurant industry will bounce back eventually.
Yeah. And talking to people in hospitality in the UK, one of the other big knock-on effects has been suppliers, and obviously them not having anyone to supply has been an issue. So I don't know, Kirk, what's it like in Singapore? Has that been something that you've had to discuss, and like going forward, how that's going to work?
Yeah, we do. Actually, in Singapore, there's not a whole lot of produce produced in Singapore. We try and source a lot of our ingredients from kind of around the world. There are obviously local farmers who we've tried to support in other areas, but with us being closed, it's very challenging to involve ourselves in purchasing ingredients, because the restaurant's closed. We've got no customers to supply them to. A lot of people, however, are looking into kind of veg boxes and food boxes. I think similar to what Nelly did with a box of meat or vegetables that we could bring from the farms and deliver to the customers around for a price. Me personally, we didn't get involved with it because of the hotel restrictions and the fact that we were closed. So it was easier to kind of close the restaurant doors and look at other operations around the hotel than really getting involved with additional purchases. So it is an issue, but we are sourcing many ingredients from around the world. I try and focus on UK ingredients. As you know, I'm reinventing British in Singapore, and those ingredients I previously have sourced, I'm hoping to return to as soon as we can open.
Okay, and when you do open, do you see yourselves having to increase the prices because of obviously the drop in covers?
With the importation in Singapore, obviously the price is pretty premium already, but with the reduction of planes coming in Singapore, and the price will probably increase for all the ingredients we source from around the world. With the increase of price, we'll be forced to slightly increase our price in the restaurant as well. But like you said as well, we're hoping not to reduce the menu size. I think you've got the reputation that you've built over these years. of the style of food you're doing and the general feeling in the restaurant, and we don't want to alter the experience too much. We're not looking to reduce the menu. We're not looking to reduce the amount of time people are in having the experience. I think, like you've all mentioned, people want to return to a very happy place, come back, enjoy themselves, and finally being allowed out of their houses to a place that they can really enjoy a restaurant experience. So that's what we're going to try and return to when we can open, rather than reducing the time, reducing the courses, reducing the experience, and try and really maintain the excitement that people used to have there.
Yeah, and Prateek, what about yourselves? There's a couple of things there that we've talked about. So, you know, do you think people will want to come back to a restaurant environment, and what are people's thoughts? Are they scared? Are they worried? And then also for yourself, will you see a price increase, do you think, with the knock-on effect of obviously suppliers and things like that?
First things first, I think people are really excited to be coming back. We're still getting bookings for September, and I think, you know, we're telling them, you know, hold on. You know, we're taking the bookings right now, but then we don't know exactly what date will be open. But I think in the general consensus of the people are really excited. And people are bored sitting at homes, and they really want to get out. And especially with the strict lockdown, people really want to go out and, you know, get that normalcy back in their lives. They want to go grab a drink. They want to go, you know, grab a nice meal at a restaurant. So yes, people are really, really wanting to come back, wanting to go to restaurants, and so are we. We're really waiting to open. You know, most of our sourcing is from in and around local farmers from north, south, east, west of India. So I don't think the prices we're going to increase the prices. The price of the menu will still remain the same. But we are looking at doing a couple of other additions and subtraction in the menu, where we can have two different kinds of menu to offer rather than just having one. That's what we're looking at right now.
Okay. And Niklas, Nelly, you're obviously already operating. So have you had to increase prices because of coronavirus and because of the knock-on effects?
I mean, the one thing that we're struggling a little bit here in Scandinavia is working force when it comes into farms, because most of the farms are run, especially the hard labor is done by Eastern Europeans and people from Ukraine, and they have not been coming to the country. So a lot of the strawberries, asparagus, garlic, onions, the things that we're used to having a bundle of and a great price on is really high right now. So the spring was cold and very few, no cheap labor has led to an increase in prices, especially in vegetables and products. So we've had to increase the price on certain dishes and some things, but at the same time, we've reduced the tasting menu to less dishes, so we reduced the price and increased the price at once. But people are still spending a lot of money on wine, and because people are not traveling, they buy a little more, maybe like a bottle of champagne instead of sparkling wine. So at the end of the day, the turnover on per guest is pretty much the same as before the crisis. But the one thing that the big change for us is that we don't have any tourists. So we went from an international Michelin-starred restaurant with mostly foreign clients to now only have local people, and that's Stockholmers, they usually like travel on the weekends. A lot of people have two houses, so a lot of people leave the city in the weekends, but now they stay in. So that's been really fun to see that people from down the road come to the restaurant and that we've never met before. So we have a new clientele as well, which we really enjoyed.
Okay. And Nelly, what about yourself in terms of pricing?
So I've just reduced it by $20 only, just to try and get people through, but we're doing a double turn. So doing a double turn means more revenue. So for a business side of things, we're actually making more money in that way. But when we go back to August, because this menu that's on currently is on for 2 months, and then when we release the menu in August, we're actually only putting it up by only $7. So the $7 will actually give them something different as well. So we're around the same. We're quite lucky here as well, because Sydney siders like to go out a lot. They locally as well and support their local businesses, and we've had a lot of familiar faces in. But again, as Niklas has said, and everyone else, is the tourism isn't there, but we're in the middle of winter now, so usually there's not so much tourism anyway. So we're fine. We're used to the people that are coming in, and we're underground as well, so we make it quite cozy being underground. So it's quite a nice winter venue as well. So we'll just keep going. In produce style, it's funny because beef has actually gone down in price because China has stopped buying our beef because of the politicians. So beef prices have actually cut by, I think, nearly 40% over here at the minute. So so that, again, there's things happening that for a reason. So yeah, we're all good at the minute for produce.
Yeah, okay, lots of beef on the menu. We've talked about the social distancing in terms of customers, but how are you managing to do that with staff? So how easy has that been to operate?
So I've reduced the kitchen from 8 staff to 4 or 5, depending on what day, and they've just had to work a little bit harder, but it's less courses, so it's technically the same anyway. And on the floor, we've taken it from 8 staff down to 5 to 6, depending. So we've reduced a bit, and it is quite a small restaurant as well. So with the guests in and the 50 cover room, we hit probably about 50 every time it's full. So the 2 sittings of about 34 covers a night gives us that. So we've been all right. It's been good for my wages for the first time today. When I looked at my wages, the wages are down. So as a businessman, I've been really happy. But when we reopen to the menu we're used to doing in August with the extra courses, we'll hire a couple more staff as well on top of that. So we should be up to 100 probably in the next 2 weeks, I think, which will then make more venues be full capacity. So no, it's good.
And how easy, Niklas, is it for you to keep your staff at a safe distance, and like delivering food to a table, for example? Like you must have to come within the 1 meter rule to do that.
Yeah, so when it comes to staff, we've pretty done the same. We've cut down from 10 to 5. So we've done like a mise en place team, and then we have a service team. And then what's been great in Sweden has been that the government's been supporting. So if you have COVID-19 symptoms, you can stay home and the government pays you. So, and you don't have to do any checkups or anything. It's just, if you have any symptoms, just stay at home. So we've been very, very strict with that in the restaurant. So if anyone has any type of symptom, like just even a cough or like, a sneeze, you're sent home, like a school. So so I mean, a lot of people have been home for quite a long time if they have any symptoms. So that's made us reduce the team as well. So actually, as he was mentioned before, we also are down. We cut down quite big on staff costs, so that's a good thing. But then and then when it comes to waiting the tables, we used to have more staff in front of the house as well, but we've cut down a little bit of that. And then of course you just need to be cautious, and the waiters need to be careful when waiting the tables. But we have a fine dining restaurant, so we're kind of used to keeping distance from the guests and making sure that everything is clean and making sure that distance. I think that's one of the reasons why our business has been, I think, popular as well during the crisis, is because people knew beforehand that we are very that we have a little more distance, and that the waiters can work more further from the tables. So, and you never feel crowded. So yeah, it worked out pretty well actually. We haven't had any cool things.
Can I just say as well, is 5 of our courses are finger food for the customer anyway, so it's individually portioned. So they don't have to share plate anything, they don't have to share cutlery. It's all about themselves actually sharing with their own hands. So that's been successful for us as well, because people know that we do that. And then they're into the 4 courses with cutlery anyway, that's obviously been washed. So the signals of that, and then knowing that we're practicing and looking after the way that things are washed and everything has been a success as well.
Okay. And Prateek and Kirk, listening to that and putting those things in place, how do you feel yourselves about being able to socially distance your staff and your customers?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge. Actually, we've been discussing it in the restaurant how we, as you know, most parts of Asia, people are wearing masks. So for my front of house team in the fine dining restaurant, wearing a mask with the customer when the sommelier is doing the wine or the cutlery change, it will definitely increase a bit of an awkward situation. And the staff in the kitchen, we've got 12 or 15 guys in the kitchen sometimes. So in the small space, Nelly, I think you've seen the kitchen is quite a cramped location. It's definitely a concern for when we do reopen. That's why we're waiting for the official government announcements to see about the social distancing, the rules and the regulations, how close or how far we need to be from each other and from the customers to address that. But it is definitely a concern. It's going to be very tough to work out the configuration of the restaurant and where everybody needs to be at the right time. Yeah.
Prateek, what about yourself?
I think it's going to be a bit challenging, especially in the kitchen. Because we are 8 people in the kitchen currently, and we had a funny situation because right now also we wear masks and gloves when we're doing the delivery menu. A lot of times what had happened, I was tasting some food and the spoon straight away hits the mask first because it's the first instinct. But I think government is very strict that any food service establishment has to wear a mask at any given point of time. So I think that we will sort of definitely adhere to. But I mean, in the dining room, as Kirk also mentioned, that it'll be a little awkward, when you're talking, and even a sommelier is talking or while you're interacting. But I think for us, it's the need of the hour, and I think we will certainly adhere to that. As far as social distancing is concerned, I think there are a lot of SOPs that we are working out right now as to maybe we change the stations, maybe we change the orientation of the kitchen a little bit where we can be distant, but of course it's going to be quite challenging. So I mean, right now, I think listening to what Niklas and Nelly has to say, I think it'll be quite helpful for us just to draw what we can do, what we cannot do as far as social distancing is concerned.
Yeah, okay. And a final question, I think, are you all pretty confident that the international hospitality industry will get back to normal or get back to a place where it's good for you? Because obviously you're all in places where tourism is vital. So what are your thoughts on that kind of final, how long is it going to take and are we going to get there?
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Well, I think that tourism, like weekend tourism and tourism within Europe, will be great in the future. And I think that people will really long for traveling and visiting other countries. I think that will definitely come back quickly. One thing I'm a little worried about is that maybe this type of meeting will take over like business meetings and traveling with, just day, as we have in Europe, we have day trips, from Helsinki, Copenhagen, Berlin, and London, and so on, that, have a simple meeting, just one-off meeting. Maybe they'll do that on Zoom or Google Hangout or something instead of traveling. So maybe we'll have less business travelers and more tourists. I think that is one scenario that you could look onto.
Okay. Nelly?
I'm actually really excited about it because I've got a feeling that guests and people with restaurants actually might appreciate what restaurants are about a bit more. I think in the last couple of years, especially down this end, people have taken them for granted a little bit, and there's a lot of restaurants around that we know. And I've got a feeling that in the next couple of years, guests that haven't been able to go out as much will actually appreciate going out and having that food and wine a bit more and interactive, with the partners or friends and everything a little bit more. But I just don't want, like Niklas said, technology to take over. I think dining is about one-on-one, two-on-two, talking about how your week and how your day has been. And that's one of the reasons we try and ban the phones in the restaurant, is because we just don't want people on them, because you're out to dine and you're out to talk. And I don't want that to take over our normal lives anymore. So from this, I think people just need to get out, enjoy themselves, and don't worry, and go and eat good food and drink good wine. It's just what it's about.
Yeah. And Prateek?
No, I think one question which I'm really asking myself a lot is For us, hospitality is all about, warmth and, meeting each other. At the end of the service, you'll have your guests coming into your kitchen, give you a nice hug. I mean, what will happen to that? I mean, right now I'm just like worried about the warmth. I mean, that's what we work for. It's a joy to serve and, feed people. And at the end of the day, when you get these hugs and, fist bumps and high fives, I don't know like what the new hospitality would be or the new warmth would be. I'm a bit worried about that, honestly, first. But I'm also hoping that, business will resume. As a human race, we have a tendency to bounce back quickly. If you just go back to the history and see, there have been so many, unfortunate things that have happened to the human race. But I think as human race, we bounce back so quickly and move on. And I think, I'm just being very hopeful and positive that, we will bounce back with this. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. I think 2021 will be the year when, we'll bounce back to what we were earlier. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. And Kirk?
Yeah, I think the world has changed a lot in the last 10 and 20 years. Now everybody is a foodie. Everybody's keen on the dining scene. Everyone's a foodie and a critic when they come into the restaurant. And that's only going to grow. People's interest in what they do and where they do it, their eating and dining situation is only going to grow stronger and better. I think it's one of the major top marks of the items people are looking forward to doing when they can finally jump out of lockdown is go for a nice meal or a nice drink somewhere. All of my friends and family I speak to, that's the kind of number one criteria of what they need to do when they get out. They want to go to a nice restaurant, a nice experience, and also finally a weekend away, which is something we're all going to look forward to as well. So it's definitely going to bounce back. It'll bounce back pretty solid as soon as we're allowed to. It's going to come back hard and fast.
Yeah, definitely. I hope so. I mean, I think most people are desperate to not have to cook for themselves anymore, at the very least. So, right. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end it, just to bring this to a close. So it's been really interesting finding out about the impact on all of you. All of the experiences are obviously very, very different. And hopefully we can all learn something from each other and looking at what everyone else is doing so that we can get back to normal as soon as possible. So brilliant. So thanks again to everybody. And
thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed this interview, and if you have any comments, feel free to tweet us or comment on the post. We're making all of our interviews available to download. And finally, if you like what we do, whether it's our podcast or our videos or even our features, please head over to our Patreon page and support us there. This episode of Grilled is sponsored by Rationale, your leading provider in multifunctional hot food preparation equipment. Register now for a free Rationale live demo at www.rationale-online.com.